Tonight, we'll dive into the world of the unseen. Stories of poltergeists, restless spirits that do not whisper from the shadows, but make their presence known with violence, chaos, and fear. From haunted homes to cursed schools, from quiet apartments to forgotten places, these tales will show you what happens when the invisible decides to strike. So, take a deep breath, because once the first sound begins, there's no turning back. Story 1: The House in New England. Victoria and her children were excited about the move. After months of searching, they finally found a charming, historic 19th century house, perfect for starting a new life. For the first few days, everything seemed perfect. But soon, little things began to happen. A cup on the table would fall to the floor, pictures would tilt slightly, unexplained, nothing Victoria could understand. As the nights wore on, the sounds grew more intense. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways, footsteps appeared in empty rooms, and doors slammed loudly when there was no wind. Her children began to say they saw moving shadows, but Victoria tried to convince them it was just their imagination. But then came the night no one in the family would ever forget. Furniture began to move on its own, spinning and falling, as if invisible hands had taken over the house. Terrified, Victoria realized it wasn't just a joke or an illusion. Something far beyond the world of the living was there, watching and interacting with them. Since then, the house has maintained its peaceful facade during the day, but at night, any unusual sound reminds us that New England's past has not yet rested, and invisible whispers continue to echo through the halls of the old residence. Story 2: Poltergeist in Toronto. Emma was a college student living alone in an old apartment in downtown Toronto. At first, the place seemed perfect, quiet, close to the university, and with a historic charm she loved. But soon, things began to get strange. Books fell off the shelves by themselves, glasses moved from the table, and small objects seemed to move without explanation. Emma tried to rationalize, thinking that perhaps she was too tired or distracted, until the shadows appeared. She began to notice fleeting figures in the corners of the apartment. Quick, almost imperceptible movements that disappeared as she approached. At night, voices whispered her name, soft and insistent, as if someone or something were always there, watching her every step. The most terrifying moment occurred one morning. Emma woke with the sensation of being touched. Objects around the room moved violently, and doors slammed shut, locking and unlocking without human intervention. It was impossible to deny, something invisible, intelligent, and enraged had turned her apartment into a horror theater. Since then, Emma lived in fear of every noise, every shadow. Even friends who tried to visit her reported feeling an unsettling presence, as if the poltergeist were always lurking, ready to manifest itself again. Story 3: Abandoned House in Ohio. A group of friends decided to explore an abandoned house in Ohio, famous among locals for strange disappearances and stories of apparitions. The place, covered in dust and cobwebs, exuded a chilling sense of abandonment. As soon as they entered, they felt the air change. An old chair, forgotten in the middle of the living room, moved on its own, turning slightly. Low laughter echoed through the rooms, and the sound of footsteps seemed to follow them throughout the house. One of them tried to record the experience with their cell phone, and the camera captured voices whispering their names, even though the house was completely empty. The feeling of being watched became unbearable. A cabinet opened violently by itself, scattering objects across the floor, and the group ran in terror, vowing never to return. The house remained there, silent during the day, but anyone who dares to enter after sunset feels that something is still there, waiting for unsuspecting visitors. Story 4: Poltergeist in the Vancouver suburbs. On the outskirts of Vancouver, Lucas's family moved to a quiet neighborhood, hoping for calm and safety. However, it wasn't long before strange occurrences began. At night, loud knocks echoed against the walls, furniture moved by itself, and objects disappeared from obvious places only to reappear in impossible ones. The youngest son began talking to an invisible friend no one else could see, and the atmosphere in the house became tense and unsettling. One night, while everyone was asleep, an entire table rose on its own and crashed to the floor, waking the family in panic. Lucas realized this was no natural occurrence. An invisible, furious, and intelligent presence was shaping reality around him. Since then, the house has been marked by silent fear, and each night brought the whisper of something that refused to rest, watching the family closely. Story 5: Haunted School in Massachusetts. In a small Massachusetts town, an old school held secrets that few dared to reveal. Teachers and students frequently reported books flying off shelves, chairs moving on their own, and paintings falling over for no apparent reason. At night, janitors claimed to hear footsteps and soft voices whispering names that belonged to no one present. Some even felt invisible hands touching them in the dark hallways. One night, during an inspection, a teacher entered a room alone and witnessed books spinning in the air, as if someone unseen were rehearsing a macabre play. He fled the building and never returned, and rumor has it that the poltergeist remains active, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. These were just 5 short stories, 5 disturbing encounters with the inexplicable. Objects that move on their own, voices that whisper in the dark, and invisible forces that defy all logic. But what about you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever felt a presence beside you when no one was around? Leave your story in the comments. Perhaps yours will appear here in a future video. Thank you for watching until the end, and if you want to continue exploring the unknown, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Until next time, Night Dweller, and remember, some presences never disappear.